All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Brandon Aiyuk, is he on the move? Could he be a Washington Commander before long? We'll talk a little bit about the possibility. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. Get some brisket chili. You will love Pig and a Pickle. And, of course, this video is brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. Well, we saw Brandon Aiyuk on TikTok the other day talking to Jaden Daniels, the new rookie quarterback of the Washington Commanders. And you say, well, what's the connection? I don't understand. What do the two guys have to do with each other at all? Why is they're not teammates? Why they chummy? Why are they buddies? Well, Jaden Daniels played at Arizona State. And he was probably a very raw freshman when Aiyuk was finishing up at Arizona State playing for Herm Edwards. So these guys have a partnership and a friendship that goes back to Tempe, Arizona, and years ago when Daniels was in his first year of college at Arizona State. This is all well before Daniels transferred to LSU and became a top 3 draft choice, and then eventually found his way to the Washington Commanders. But there was some talk. These guys appeared on camera right before the draft, going 4 days from now. There's gonna be all kinds of stuff to talk about. There's gonna be fireworks. And people speculated then, is it possible that the Commanders and Adam Peters would get together with John Lynch and on a trade for Brandon Aiyuk? And so, there was some speculation at the time. And then now, and here we are 24 hours after you have Aiyuk talking to Daniels saying, hey, they don't want me. They don't want me for real. So talking about the 49ers, and I think it's safe to say the 49ers absolutely do want Brandon Aiyuk. They just want him at their price. It's a negotiation. He doesn't want them at their price. He wants them at his price. They don't want him at his price. They want him at their price. And that's what this negotiation is all about. So this idea that, that somehow the 49ers don't want Brandon Aiyuk is crazy. They absolutely do. They just don't want him at $35 million or probably anything close or anything north of $30 million. And that's, I have no sources, just my guess. So a buddy of mine asked me, what do you think a trade to the Commanders would look like? Are the Commanders a good fit for the 49ers as far as a trade? Well, here's why. On the surface, you would say no, they're not a good fit. Why? Because it's year one of this new Washington regime. Adam Peters is a first-year general manager. Dan Quinn is a first-year head coach with the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury is a first-year offensive coordinator. You would think, like most first-year regimes, that they were going to show patience, build through the draft, gradually get better. Then all of a sudden now you look up in 2 years or 3 years and you're competing with Dallas and you're competing with Philly inside the division. But I think we have reason to believe that the Commanders want to improve much, much faster than that. They understand they're an iconic franchise that's been driven into the ground by Dan Snyder. There's now a new owner, new regime. Bob Myers is there. He brought in Adam Peters, who brought in Dan Quinn, who brought in Cliff Kingsbury. And so they're changing this thing up. But they're trying to rebuild a dormant, iconic franchise, and as fast as they possibly can, and then improve the product on the field, get some attention and get the fans back in the seats and start building momentum towards trying to get a new stadium built there in the greater DC area, whether it be DC, Maryland, Virginia, wherever it's going to be, somewhere out there in their marketplace. They would like to build a state-of-the-art, brand new stadium. They've got an outdated stadium. They're not making the money that they should make off their stadium. So the whole thing is about Bob Myers. Bring in Bob Myers, let him reset the football course, and then let the momentum that they get on the football side fuel the drive for a new stadium, because they know that you buy the team for X, but if you can get a stadium built and rebuild the iconic Washington Redskin moniker into a much bright and sunnier day here with the Commanders, that's going to take the value of that franchise and maybe double it. If you buy a team for $1 billion and you want that team to be worth $2 billion as fast as possible, the smartest thing you could possibly do would be build a new stadium. And the only way to do that is to get the fans, really excited about the Commanders franchise once again. The only way to do that is to improve on the field. So what did Bob Myers do when he brought in Adam Peters? Or I should say, what did Peters do after Bob Myers brought him in? He went and signed 20 veteran free agents. They didn't sign one like Javon Hargrave a couple years ago with the Niners, where Adam Peters was part of the Niner front office, and they signed one major free agent, Javon Hargrave. This year, the Commanders signed 20 free agents. Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, Dorrance Armstrong on their defensive line, Cleveland Farrell from the 49ers, Frankie Louvu from Carolina, Bobby Wagner comes over from Seattle, Jeremy Chin from the Panthers. I mean, they went out and signed 20 free agents. Why? Because they're not a typical first-year team. They're trying to win and win now. All right, fast forward back to Aiyuk. Why are the Commanders a good fit for Aiyuk? Because I think in a lot of ways they have the pieces that the 49ers would need to make this deal a reality. So any deal involving Aiyuk probably involves a receiver coming back. They've got Terry McLaurin. They also have Luke McCaffrey. They've got other guys there as well. Jamison Crowder, is the former New York Jet. He's there as well. And they have Jahan Dotson, the former Penn State first-round pick. So they have receivers. They just don't have that true, running mate to McLaurin. So if they want Aiyuk, I doubt they want to move McLaurin. They just drafted McCaffrey. I doubt they want to move McCaffrey, even though, the 49ers probably would have some interest in McCaffrey coming back. They signed Marcus Rosemi-Jack Saint from Georgia after the draft. Doubtful they'll move him. So my guess is they would move Jahan Dotson, who's been, a little disappointing. He's got great ball skills. He's not the biggest receiver, but that would be a nice replacement. But Aiyuk's quite a bit better than Jahan Dotson, so it wouldn't be a straight-up deal. There's also talk that the Commanders may shop Jonathan Allen. They paid Daron Payne. They went and signed Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell. They just drafted Johnny Newton out of Illinois in round 2. They could plug him in for Jonathan Allen. Now, if you're the 49ers who always prioritize the defensive line, Jonathan Allen would be very attractive. There's also, there was also a lot of talk that when Ambry Thomas, was coming out in the draft, that it was Adam Peters that really pounded the table for Ambry Thomas, who's kind of wore out his welcome here in San Francisco because of just the up and down nature of his career and how he's played, some good games, some bad games. The Commanders have their own corner in Emmanuel Forbes, who is a good corner in his own right, but is coming off of a disappointing year, and he's looking to bounce back. So here would be the trade. The 49ers send Brandon Aiyuk, Ambry Thomas, and Kalia Davis, a defensive tackle, throw a tackle back to them, to the Commanders, and the Commanders send to the Niners Jahan Dotson, Emmanuel Forbes, and Jonathan Allen. The Commanders get the far better wide receiver in Aiyuk for Dotson, but the Niners get a slight win on Forbes for Ambry Thomas, and the Niners get a significant win on Jonathan Allen for Kalia Davis. And if they don't want Kalia Davis and they wanted Kevin Givens, I'd make that deal as well. You could have Kevin Givens if you would rather have Kevin Givens. But Aiyuk, Ambry Thomas, and their choice of Kevin Givens or Kalia Davis to the Commanders for Jonathan Allen, Emmanuel Forbes, and Jahan Dotson. Dotson would give the Niners a replacement wide receiver with good ball skills who they could plug in. He's not Aiyuk, but he's serviceable. and they would bolster their defensive line, which needs bolstering, and they would add a playmaking corner in a swap of talented yet underachieving corners. No draft picks involved at all, just a straight 3-for-3. Aiyuk, Ambry Thomas, and either Kevin Givens or Kalia Davis to the Commanders. Jahan Dotson, Emmanuel Forbes, and Jonathan Allen to the 49ers. To me, this is a trade that really is win-win. It gives the Commanders that true I mean, they've got Jaden Daniels. You want to help a young quarterback? Build up your offensive line and build up the weapons. Well, that's exactly what they've done. They brought in Biadasz from Dallas to be their center. They brought in Allegretti from Kansas City. They're plugging him in at left guard. And then they changed the weapons. They've got Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson running the ball. They brought in Zach Ertz at tight end. They drafted Ben Sinnott from K-State, so they upgraded at tight end. And then they would have Terry McLaurin and Brandon Aiyuk and Luke McCaffrey as their top 3 receivers. So in a lot of ways, this is a major, major win for the Commanders because they get they would probably have one of the best combination of 1-2 wide receivers. McLaurin could be your 1. Aiyuk could be your 1. Aiyuk could be your 2. McLaurin could be your 2. But what's undoubted, cannot be doubted is that's one of the better duo wide receiver combos you're going to see in the NFL. So from that standpoint, they would have a dynamic wide receiver combo. They would have a corner that Peters likes in Ambry Thomas. And they would have a defensive lineman to plug in behind Johnny Newton as a backup inside. And they can start Johnny Newton next to Daron Payne up front and replace Jonathan Allen. And for the Niners, they can take Malik Collins and play him off the bench. And if they want, and they can go, or they can say goodbye to Javon Hargrave at the end of the year and let him walk away and go with Jonathan Allen. It gives the Niners a very hard-working defensive tackle and a replacement corner and a wide receiver who's not Aiyuk, but is a decent replacement. So I don't know if the Niners are going to keep Aiyuk or if they're going to trade Aiyuk. Trading Aiyuk for, a backup tight end from Pittsburgh and a first-round draft choice in next year's draft, how does that help the 49ers win the Super Bowl this year? It really doesn't. This trade, though, does help the 49ers win the Super Bowl this year. They would get a receiver that they could play right away in Dotson. They would get a corner they could play right away in Forbes. They would get a defensive lineman that right away would be a force on their front in Jonathan Allen. And they would be they're still inside their Super Bowl window. They've moved off of Aiyuk. They found him a new home. He's found a place that will pay him, $35 million a year, and the Niners can get down the road and they can add Dotson to Debo and Pearsall and Cowing and move on from Aiyuk, but also strengthen their defensive line and maybe strengthen their defensive backfield. So I'd love to hear your comments on the trade. It's not a source deal. I'm just looking at the rosters, looking at what makes sense for the Niners, what may potentially make sense for the Commanders. And you just got to remember this. The Commanders are not about a 5-year plan. The Commanders are not about a 3-year plan. The Commanders are about trying to turn their franchise around right away. And Aiyuk is going to help them do that in a major, major way. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.